Hi, Mr. Aldridge. This is Nina Lively, and this is my final presentation for college or technical trade school or vocational school or career technical education, and what is it worth to you. So from the overview, I started to examine how do we evaluate education in the 21st century, or how do we measure success. So from post-secondary education 2 to 4 college, university, or what I've learned in career technical education was an idea that was proposed by Stone in 2017, and then certifications. So the research was designed to examine why there was so much weight put on an actual college education as opposed to vocational opportunities that are available, especially when you're trying to consider the cost of education and the student loans that accompany it, some ranging in the thousands post-graduation. Looking at vocational training, obviously the price tag is a lot less. The commitment is a lot less as opposed to 2 to 4 years. And the employment, either it's almost immediate, or at least you at least get to start employment and provide that on-the-job experience, as opposed to college graduates who then have to complete their degree and then find employment afterwards, depending on their field. The comparison was that obviously college, over a period of time, college degree recipients would make more, to the tune of about 50,000. That was over a lifetime. Whereas some students graduating high school may be looking for opportunities to work in a career pathway before 2 to 4 years, or they desire to work in a field or an industry that does not require 2 to 4 years. But what we found is that there's been a mindset to push college as a form of success, even from counselors to students, even to parents. And say from a personal perspective, that is what my parents say they wanted for me, because they wanted something better than they have for themselves. But that's not necessarily the path, and that's just education that's education that's on their part, not understanding other vocational programs that were out there, and that they did those educational programs, vocational programs, didn't have the stigma attached to them as this low class, or they didn't necessarily perform well in school, and so therefore they are now the cosmetologist or the electrician or the plumbing, when in actuality these are trades that are always sought after because they are dependent on or add to our quality of life. So the other thing I looked at from the student loan debt is the government programs that either incentivize or were established by standardized tests. They either incentivize schools to either perform, or the ones that are low performing, there's really no programs to bring them up to standards. So the government programs, kind of like the poverty theory, keep them in the same academic class. So if you're in a high academic performing class, then you kind of stay there. If you're low, more likely the programs were not geared towards, they're always geared to teaching you at that level instead of accelerating you or providing alternative programs to help, whether it's from a disability and learning, or just from the area, the socioeconomic area, being that there wasn't enough money or funding for that school. So they were more of a hindrance than they were a help. One of the programs that were mentioned was No Child Left Behind, which provided those standardized tests. In a way, yes, it helped, because then you could garner where students were performing, engage where help was needed, but at the same time, it did not address programs like vocational programs that could actually provide an alternative to post-secondary education. So in our depth analysis, I found that in looking at college or students that were looking to attend college, that there was a stigma. There was a stigma of blue collar and white collar, of success and or not being successful, which is obviously it's not true. And then there was really no one advocating for the benefits of vocational trade or industry training, or even partnering with industry organizations to bring that information into the schools or into these educational organizations to provide that to the students as a form of alternative education. So that was one part of the solutions that I found. Was Mr. Stone in 2017, the career technical education was to inform at the, middle school, not to wait to at high school, but to start to develop these students in middle school, partnering with industry organizations to come in and speak to them, especially in the age of technology now, where we have artificial intelligence, or you have social media, and you have other avenues that do not necessarily take 2 to 4 years or a college degree. So the other part of it was more personal testimony. So I read a couple articles about several students that were pondering their decision to go to college. One young lady, her decision was based off her parents and based off her area where she left or where she lived. So it was her desire to leave, as opposed to exploring different alternatives. She was motivated by leaving her neighborhood. Whereas others, she just didn't think that they had the opportunity. So there was no visibility into other programs that were available. 2 students that did decide to go to vocational trade, even those advocated by their parents to go to college, did find success in their particular trades. One was in cabinetry, one was in commercial design, and so even their parents had to release that stigma or understand that they were didn't have enough understanding about vocational schools as they would have liked, but because of their knowledge of college and their low understanding of success, then that's what they pushed. And then obviously the test groups were students who were entertaining either technical or vocational trade, college, or university 2 to 4 year government assistant students who were a part of those government programs, and then obviously those with unlimited financial resources. I would say that even those that were part of the dropout rate, the 30%, that they did not exclude those that were either that obtained student loans or those that actually did pay for college. And then the factors and dimensions were the leadership styles. Now, one thing that Reynolds in 2004 did mention in regards to vocational school was the characteristics of the employability and the being able to be adaptable and to be flexible. These are some of the attributes that I wouldn't say vocational trades teach directly, but it's part of their curriculum to adapt to the information that's being presented and then apply it. Whereas college degree or holders only have the knowledge, not necessarily the application. And then obviously what motivated each class, primarily a lot of it could be based off information, external information, like you said, the stigma of vocational and college, but a lot of it was internally, the stereotype of college being successful. But yeah, some of it was internal, especially with the 2 students that decided to go to vocational trade because that was just their passion. And then one of the interviewer was, as I'm a big advocate for trying to find out what that solution is, or what are their passions and what is their purpose um, early on, as opposed to waiting till high school. In conclusion, um, my conclusion is develop education programs that partner with industry organizations, provide real-time job needs and training requirements, stop assuming all students want to go to college. That's not success for standard for success. Maybe mirror educational programs similar to the military I mentioned in the paper in regards to, it's called 360. Just provide more of the on-the-job training or opportunities to leave your different field and work in others. And as Christians, we need seek wisdom and understanding, seek opportunities to share our knowledge once we gain that understanding, and encourage and empower students, subordinates, and trainees to lead, and then we will follow. Thank you.